Notre vie, ça a été très en danger parce qu'on n'a pas eu plus vite de sauvetage. Donc on est resté là-bas un jour sans voir de sauvetage. Il y a certaines personnes qui sont décédées. On a décidé de venir ici en Italie pour chercher la vie meilleure. Donc, quand on a pris la route, on a pris la route de Côte d'Ivoire, Niger, Burkina et puis Libye. Donc, on est rentré. Mais en Libye, on a eu des souffrances, des tortures, et on a eu des prisons avant de rentrer ici. Ce n'est pas facile pour nous sur la route parce qu'il y a des gens qui sont morts sur la route, il y a des gens qui ont eu les blessures parce que les Libyens sont les bastonnés.
Από το 2011, η ομάδα του Αμπόντιρη των ΛΑΣ προσφέρει φιλοκερδός νομική βοήθεια και προστασία σε πολίτες του εξωτερικού, πρόσφυγες και αιτούντες ασύλου στη Ρώμη. Μαζί με δικηγόρους που εξειδικεύονται στο μεταναστευτικό δίκαιο, η νομική ομάδα τους στηρίζει ανθρώπους στις διαδικασίες για αίτηση ασύλου, αίτηση για έκδοση ή ανανέωση και μετατροπή της άδειας παραμονής, για έφεση ενέτηση αποφάσεις απέλασης ή απορρίψης ασύλου, για απόκτηση της ιταλικής υπηκότητας, για αίτηση αναγνώρισης ανηθαγένειας και για επανένωση με τις οικογένειές τους.
When all migrants arrive, without the distinction between asylum seekers, refugees, etc., they should be given legal information on the possibility to ask asylum.
Italy, as a European country, is part of a general legal system wider than the national one that generally protect people and should protect people and refugees. We are part of Geneva Convention, so we should protect people, migrant and refugee.
People are free to ask asylum at the slightest chance, so when they want, both orally, verbally, or in a written form. But often is not the case, unfortunately. So what we know that often is the case is that people are kind of separated based on nationalities. So if they come from certain countries that are considered to be so-called safe countries of origin, from a list that the state has on safe countries of origin, they tend to be suggested not to seek asylum because the authorities believe they come for economic reasons, rather than persecution or a danger for their life or their human rights.
À notre arrivée, vraiment, c'était magnifique quand on a retrouvé la Saône. Nous sommes très heureux parce que quand tu es sur la mer, cette situation, donc tu veux retrouver seulement les sols. Dès qu'on a retrouvé les sols, on est très heureux. Aussi encore, les Italiens nous ont bien accueillis. Donc, ils ont nous donné les nourritures à manger, à boire. Vraiment, ils sont bien accueillis.
As an asylum seeker, you should get accommodation and material assistance since the beginning, so since the expression of intent, that formally make you an asylum seeker. What happens is that the resources are not enough, the money is not enough, the staff is not enough, and the political will is not enough.
Pour nous vivre, c'est pas facile. Et puis aussi encore, ils sont envoyés dans un centre. Chaque mois, on prenait 20 €. Chaque mois, on prenait 20 €. Mais on se vit avec ça en ces temps.
previous law that of course weren't the best law in general, but there are some kind of spaces to protect people if they were in Italy since a lot of time. Now this possibility is completely over.
The Meloni government used immigration and asylum and refugees a lot during her political campaign. And now that she has been elected, certain things changed and certain negative impacts were seen. The first immigration decree that was released during her government in January 2023 was against the NGOs conducting search and rescue in the Mediterranean. So imposing a new code of conduct which were more difficult and could limit their impact for saving lives at sea. The special protection has been changed again. People cannot seek special protection directly in Questura as it was possible before, but only through the international protection procedure. And the special protection permits now are no longer convertible into work permits, and these pose a serious risk to the life path of a person. Meloni government has changed also the rules on reception conditions and accommodation. So asylum seekers no longer can enter into the reception centers of the SAI system unless they have manifest vulnerabilities. Another thing that occurred during the Meloni government is the expansion of the list of so-called safe countries of origin. And of course the infamous protocol with Albania to try to externalize the asylum and the immigration obligations into another state, a third country, so outside the European Union, to prove once again that the burden of migrants and asylum seekers and refugees is much more than what actually is. Most people don't know that asylum seekers live on the streets and despite possessing a temporary permit cannot find a work with a contract, or that some of them are almost enslaved without a contract working in rich families in the northern neighborhoods of this city.
One misconception is that migrants come here to steal the work, is one of the phrases that we heard a lot. We don't speak a lot about the exploitation of the migrants in the fields, the countryside, for example, when they work. And so the phrase is they still work, but they don't explain which kind of work and in which condition they make this.
The migrant and the asylum seeker doesn't steal anything from the poor Italian citizen or the Italian citizen in general. I think that their discrimination is hard to be seen by the civil society because they have no places or no level where they meet actually, or they are seen.
J'ai eu aussi encore souffrance des maladies ici parce que j'ai des gastriques. Un an passé, chaque mois j'étais au hôpital. Là où je suis, en ce moment, je n'ai pas de docteur. Aussi encore là où je travaille, même si je suis malade, je suis obligé de partir au travail parce que je n'ai pas de certificat pour les maladies, pour envoyer au travail. Beaucoup des Italiens, ils sont là, ils sont dans leur maison, donc il y a leur papa, il y a leur maman. Nous les immigrants, on n'est pas de papa ici, on n'est pas de maman. Donc si on va manger, on doit travailler. Si on va dormir bien, on doit travailler.
It's important to integrate people. It's important to get integrated for every one of us. So refugee and migrant are not an exception. Not integrate people, we know, doesn't take to anything good. We saw it. Just keep people separate, keep people vulnerable. It's worse for them, it's worse for who stay in their nice area in their bubble.
Le persone vengono abbandonate nel loro percorso dalle istituzioni e nell'essere abbandonate ovviamente poi finiscono in una condizione di emarginazione e quindi maggiore contatto con reti criminali, maggiore contatto con situazioni di sfruttamento di vario tipo. Persone che sono escluse dalla società, persone che si trovano a rischio di sfruttamento lavorativo, di marginalizzazione, perché non hanno la possibilità di accedere ad una serie di diritti fondamentali come il diritto alla salute, al lavoro, all'istruzione, alla casa e quindi diciamo queste norme sono sempre state chiamate appunto decreti sicurezza, cioè in Italia c'è molto l'associazione tra la parola immigrazione e la parola sicurezza, però in realtà non c'è nessun investimento sulla sicurezza sociale, cioè sulle misure di welfare, di inclusione e sull'estensione dei diritti, ma piuttosto sulla restrizione dei diritti.
Another misconception, I think, is that people that arrive with a boat are choosing to arrive to the boat and they are risking because they have chosen to risk, and no one explained that is a big problem of visa and passport, that not all the passports are the same. People don't risk their life because they want, but because they don't have alternative, they don't have safe passages, they don't have a legal way to come.
The system doesn't work. The system doesn't work because it works just in destroying people, because he come again in Italy. Even if he cannot, he doesn't care, he come again. He finish again in detention center. Detention center are not considered prison by the law, because if they were considered prison by the law, we will have some right, but also some activity, because I have to share with you that people sometimes they told us detention center are worse than prison because at least in prison there is something to do. Detention center are not officially considered prison, but the same because they are closed and surrounded by police, army, so they are closed, of course.
Disons, la plupart des gens, ils respectent les autres cultures. Moi, depuis que je suis rentré ici, je n'ai pas eu de problème avec quelqu'un. Je n'ai jamais eu de problème avec quelqu'un. Il y a des autres racistes, il y a des autres qui ne sont pas racistes. Il y a des autres qui veulent seulement te provoquer, mais il faut l'ignorer. Il y en a. Mais ils sont petits, pas nombreux.
The Italian society know that you can scream a lot, you can tell that you will build borders and build walls, but at the end it's not really possible. The Italian society is more welcoming than the government that Italy has, but we can see this with the little communities, especially with the local communities on the territory, if there is a good work of communication, a good work of interaction between people.
Et je travaille ici. Dieu merci, ce que je gagne, j'ai économisé avec ça. L'essentiel, là où tu es, il faut travailler. Il faut travailler. Quand tu as eu le travail, c'est ça qui est l'essentiel. Donc j'ai mon travail, je me débrouille. En futur, je vais rester en Italie. La première chose, j'ai envoyé ma famille ici parce que je suis marié. Je voulais envoyer ma femme avec moi vivre en Italie. Je suis encore pour vivre ici avec ma famille, chercher du boulot, bon boulot et travailler. Ça.